Good morning, everybody. Well, it may not be morning when you're watching this, but it's morning right now while I'm making it. Sorry for shaking it. Our next video with regards to orientation is the disciplinary procedure here, and this is as it relates to staff, not students. We'll get into that later, but just kind of want to walk through what happens when there needs to be some issues addressed. So unacceptable performance is kind of the basis for disciplinary procedures. Now, there's a lot that is a huge umbrella of things. It can range anything from poor classroom management to extreme things such as putting your hands on a kid or drugs or alcohol. I mean, we're talking about a really wide range of things. And so I'm going to walk through kind of what happens in the event that one of those things occur, which we obviously hope doesn't and have never had anything major happen. So, but it's pretty much just like any other place. There's kind of some steps to it unless it's so bad that we can't recover from it. So, aha moments. North Carolina is an at-will state, so you can be released for any reason or no reason. Fortunately, but I think it's right to give a reason. I've never just let somebody go just because and not explain to them why. So, even though we can, that's just not how we do things around here. So, anyway, when something happens or when we think that some things need to be addressed, well, first of all, if it's a teaching or a classroom situation that is not like negative or bad, if it's just something that we want you to improve on, we'll simply, sit down, give some constructive criticism, maybe some ways you could handle it different, some best practices to use in that situation again. So that's not necessarily getting in trouble. What we're talking about here with disciplinary procedures is more like violating a policy. So the first thing that would happen would be a verbal warning. And, we're just going to say, hey, remember our cell phone policy. We're not allowed to have cell phones out while we're supervising kids. Or that's just an example, but anything like that. It could be, hey, you've been out like 7 days and you've only been working here 13 days. So is there something going on that we need to know about? Situations like that. You have a tendency to get here late every day, or, it's becoming a habit. Those are kind of the things that I call violating a policy and would result in a verbal warning. So we'll talk about it, how, we'll record it that you were given a verbal warning, and then we'll move on, and hopefully things improve and we won't have to go to step 2. If there are 3 different issues and you are given 3 different verbal warnings, for example, 3 verbal warnings in 6 months can result in termination. And here's what I'm talking about. So let's just stick with the cell phone policy. So we give you a verbal warning about your cell phone. We record it. We, high five and everything's going to be great. And we go on. Then a couple weeks later, you start getting to work late as, on the regular. So we give you a verbal warning about that. We move on. So I'm talking about if you get 3 separate verbal warnings for 3 separate issues within 6 months, it's a termination. Now, if it's the same habit that continues, the same policy that continues to be broken, then we move to step 2. So you've been given a warning about your cell phone, and a couple weeks later we walk in and you're scrolling Facebook on the playground. We go to step 2 because we remember that you have had a verbal warning. Step 2 is a written warning. So we'll call you in. It'll be recorded you'll sign it. It'll be on paper. that you know the policy, first of all, and that you were given a verbal warning, and now this is a written warning, and you can only receive one written warning in 6 months. So, 3 verbal warnings for different issues, 1 written. And written warnings, usually, sometimes policy violations can skip step 1 and go straight to written warning, or they can skip 1 and 2 and go straight to termination. It depends on the severity of it. If you lose your cool and jerk a kid up by the arm, that is not going to be a verbal warning, or so there's situations where these steps might not be exactly the same, but this is kind of the general steps we follow. Step 3 will be termination, and that's, I don't even have to explain that. That is what it is. You'll be terminated after you have received a written warning, and then we still don't see a change in your behavior. Or like I said before, some things can result in termination without even a notice. For example, commitment of child abuse under North Carolina law, harassment, being under the influence of drugs or alcohol while at work, stealing, anything like that is grounds for immediate termination. So most things we can work with, but as I said in one of the first videos, the children's safety and well-being is our number 1 priority. So some things just can't be tolerated. So hopefully, we've never had to address that issue before. So hopefully we never have to, but we do have this disciplinary procedure in place just in case. If you have any questions, make sure that was it. If you have any questions about the discipline procedure, just see one of us, me or Diana. And the most common policies that we have to address and that people kind of struggle with are cell phones. And I wouldn't say being absent. Most of the people here, if they're absent, there's a reason for it. They have time. They bring a doctor's note. They ain't just laying out to be laying out. So I would say cell phone would be number 1 on our list of issues that we have to handle. So just make sure you keep it up high. Diana talked about that in a previous video. Keep it turned up. It's okay. If my phone rings, I'm going to answer it because I have a husband and kids. And if they call me, I'm going to answer it. I expect you to do the same thing. I just expect you to be a responsible, professional adult that does not put your cell phone before the kids that you are responsible for, because nothing would be worse than having to explain to a parent that their kid broke their arm because my teacher was on her cell phone. That would not be good. So, just be responsible, and hopefully we'll never have to address this disciplinary procedure. See you later for the next video.